So let's explain something that you're going to see today, even though you might not really have to use it or know it for today's problems. In the past, you have seen bases raised to a power. Now that's an integer power, right? So b to the fifth, we know what that is. We take b to the fifth power. What you're going to see today a couple of times are things raised to a fractional power. So we have b raised to the 4/5. And what that means is we're going to take the base and we're going to take the square root on the bottom of that base raised to the power on the top. So here's your example. If we have b to the 4/5, we're going to raise b to the 4th power here. We've taken b to the 4th power. And then we're going to take its 5th root. So we put this in the 5 here. You can think of it differently if you want. We can take the number that's on the bottom and create our radical with that number out front, and then put our b to the 4th inside of it. It doesn't matter the order that you do it in. It's the same thing. So let's quickly take a look at these two problems to see what that would give us here. X to the 1/2 power. So it's the root, and I'll put the r there for the root, under the power. So the root under the power. So we'll take our root here, which is the square root, and we don't have to, we could write a 2 out here, but it's not necessary. When there's no number, we assume it's the square root. And that's x raised to the 1st power, which we won't put a 1 there. So this is just the square root of x. X to the 1/2 is the square root of x. Then we have y, right? So we've got, again, the root under the power. So I'm going to go ahead and take my square root symbol, and I'm going to put a 5 out in front of it. That says the 5th root of y raised to what power? To the 3rd power. So now let's move on. Now let's talk about what happens when you raise a power to a power. This is called the power rule, and here we have it displayed up here where it says if you have a to the m and you raise it to the n power, then you are left with a to the m n, or m times n power, which means this. If I have 2 and it's raised to the 2nd power, and I raise it to the 2nd power again, I'm left with 2 to the 2 times 2 power, which is 2 to the 4th. And that's all there is to it. Remember also that when we have something in parentheses, like this down here for letter A, that p to the 5th is being left inside of it, and everything inside the parentheses is being raised to the 4th power. So in this case, we're going to take p to the 5th and raise it to the 4th power. So since everything in here is being raised to the 4th power, we are left with p to the 5 times 4 power, or p to the 20th. That is our answer. Over here, p to the 4th raised to the 5th power leaves us with p to the 4 times 5, which is also to the 20th power. And that brings us to p to the 1/2 to the 1/4 power. Now remember, these can be represented as fractions. This would be the square root of p and the 4th root of whatever's inside of here. But we're not going to worry about that unless it tells us to represent it as a radical. If it doesn't say that, we can just write it as a fractional power. So we'll write that as p to the 1/2 times the 1/4. And of course that leaves us with p to the 1/8 power. You look over here, we have something similar, 1/4 to the 1/2, which leaves us with p to the 1/4 times 1/2, which again leaves us with p to the 1/8. And that is all there is to it. Now let's put it all together and see what we get when we do these. We have x to the 2nd times x to the 6th to the -4th. X to the 2nd, I'm just going to bring that down. Since it's being multiplied by this, I'm going to multiply these two together. That's going to give me times x to the -24th. Now I could write this on the bottom and do some simplifying, but I can also say this is x to the 2nd plus the -24th, which leaves me with x to the -22nd. And since I really don't like having that negative exponent there, I'm just going to write it as 1 over x to the 22nd. Then I've got the next one, w to the -2nd times w to the 5/3 to the 3rd power. So the first thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to copy down my to the negative second times, and then this is going to leave me with w to the 15th over 3. 15 over 3. So that's going to leave us with w to the negative second times, and I can simplify this, w to the 5th. So now I'm left with w to the negative second times w to the 5th. I add those two, negative 2 plus 5 gives me w to the 3rd. And I'm done. Again, we could do those steps in a slightly different order, but that's the way we're going to stick with for now. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take care of this one first. Again, we'll try to take care of that multiplication. So that's going to leave us with 5, and a negative times a negative gives us a positive. So 5 over 2, 5 to the 5 over 2 power times 5 to the 3 over 2 power. So the 3 seconds there. Now we're going to add those together, right? So we're going to say that's 5 over 2 plus 3 over 2, which is going to give us 8 over 2. And 5 to the 8 over 2 is the same as 5 to the 4th. And that's simplified. There you go.